Hey guys, so we are here today with Jen Thompson from Lighthouse for Life. She's the CEO with this ministry. And we are having a conversation because our students right now, your kids, are going through a series in our student ministry entitled More Than a Hashtag, where we're not just trying to raise awareness about social issues, but we're trying to teach them that the Bible speaks and the Bible and God have things to say about our responsibility as Christians, the role we play, the way we view people, and what it means when we're dealing about these really heavy, weighty issues. And as we were talking, as we were thinking about how to go into this series, I thought this is an element in which we don't just want to talk to students, but we believe that you, as a parent of a teenager or a younger kid, or honestly a parent at any age, need to be as aware, if not more so, than your child is. And so, thank you for taking the time to watch this. We know it's going to be fruitful. And we just ask you to join us as we go through some hard conversations about the reality that is human trafficking and sex trafficking in particular. So Jen, can you kind of give us a quick summary or glimpse into what the ministry is doing, Lighthouse for Life?
Yeah.
And then we'll just get into it.
We'll go right into it. So our ministry is called Lighthouse for Life. We're a local grassroots faith-based agency that raises awareness about the realities of trafficking, helps people dispel myth versus local facts. And then we do offer restorative services to people that are trying to leave the life or they notice something in the community, in the life of the friend, family member, etc. So we're going around doing awareness, and then we're also there for when the awareness, helps you observe something and you want to know what's next. We're there to help with that as well.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to just jump right in and kind of treat the beginning of this as a truth versus myth kind of thing, and then we'll kind of see where the conversation takes us. We talked a little bit already as we have recorded one of these for the students to watch in our ministry. So let's start with the age. All right. Sometimes we think this is a problem for older adults or younger adults, but the concept of does my middle school kid, does my high school kid really need to hear this or learn about this?
Yeah.
What would you say? Where's the reality of the truth?
The truth is that this is happening here, it's happening now, and it is happening in your community. And when I say your community, I know I'm sitting in Chapin, and I know I'm in the Lexington, Richland areas. And it's a myth to think that this happens more to people that are from other countries than our own citizens. That's not true.
So it's here. It's localized. Yes. Now, is it really happening with the young ones?
Yes. So we've seen, or I've personally seen scenarios where parents were the ones that sold their children under the age of 1. And then just something to keep in mind is I've spoken with people that were 66 years old and 57 years old that were trafficked. This isn't just a cookie cutter definition. This could be anyone hurting anyone because they can. It's all motivated by money. It is a business. And the traffickers like the business owner. The commodity is a human. And then there's a purchasing element that we won't talk about probably in depth today, but that is the root cause of it all, is the purchaser.
So let's go ahead and acknowledge that at this point, guys. This is an introductory conversation, if you would. We're kind of just going over the surface of this really complex, really big, and kind of reaching issue. So hopefully there'll be more to come.
I hope so.
But we'll just start here today. So we know it's here.
Yes.
We can acknowledge that. It is a reality happening across all ages, the entire spectrum.
Yes.
Now, do you believe that our teens are at a great risk of this taking place?
Yes, I do. I believe that it's possible that the teens that you would serve may be even more at risk because they think they're not.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like sometimes we're asleep at the wheel because we think, well, that'll never happen to me or happen to anyone I know. And the truth is, Hugo, that our agency was founded because this happened to a middle class Caucasian female going to a good high school that had 2 parents that went to church, that was on a ball team, that was making good grades, the all-American girl. This happened to someone like that from Richland County 12 so years ago, and nobody caught it. She was living life at home and doing her day-to-day things while being trafficked at night secretly, and all that had happened was the traffickers had a video of her using like maybe smoking weed or something, And that was all that it took. And her fear of disappointing her parents, which I bet you $1 million lives here, it lived in my world when I grew up in a faith community. And that's all it would have taken, would be, you're gonna tell my dad I did what? Or my mom's gonna see what? Or know what? Or my friends are gonna hear what? That's all it would have taken for me if I didn't know any better. And so this young lady, the story that kind of got us founded was, basically could have picked student A out of your youth group and it would be very similar life.
And nobody noticed enough to actually intervene.
They taught that, sometimes we give this pass where we think kids are going to act a certain way and they're going to live a certain way. And that's just kids being kids. Teenagers. And that's a lie. That's a total lie. And so people just chalked up her change of demeanor and her change of how she was living as a kid, a teenager going through a phase, and nobody really went after it. Nobody was, in my opinion, brave enough or selfless enough to take the risk of saying, hey, I'm noticing you don't care about sports anymore. I'm noticing you're really angry when we talk about God. I'm noticing that your grades are just kind of in the tank. Like, what's up? I know you. I care about you. I know you. This isn't the best you. How can I help you? What's going on? Nobody went after it.
So, you describe their parents as being, middle class, and you describe them as being church attenders,
totally.
And so I feel like a lot of us would fall in that category, but a lot of us would also assume that if something like this was going on in our kids' life, they would come to us.
Yeah, they won't. If you haven't established some sort of relationship where, we don't even go to God the Father. And he died for us, and I know that by the Bible standards, there's nothing I can do to separate me from him. The only thing that separates me from him is my fear of him not accepting me, which is not even a truth. It's a lie. And so that same, love exploited, like, I love you so much, I don't want you to know this about me. Well, that's not real healthy love. Real healthy love is, I know all the ugly and I'm still here. I don't love what you did maybe, and we can talk about that. But who you are never changes. And children have the same idea of languages of love just like adults do. Some receive it through time. Some receive it through a gift. Some receive it through a touch. Some receive it through an act of service. And they receive love in different ways. And I feel like a lot of times parents, well-intentioned parents, give up on pursuit the older their kids get. And they just kind of chalk it up to, nah, they're supposed to not know me. I'm supposed to not know them. We're supposed to kind of hate each other for a while now, and they'll be back. And that's a myth. That's not the way that life was intended. It's a parent's job to pursue relationship with their kid, no matter how difficult that may be. Watch movies that you don't love. Learn to play video games. I have no children of my own. I have nephews, and I used to teach, and I have an Xbox, and I'm really good at Forza, all because I want to find things that speak the interest of my nephews. I don't want to just take a pass on, well, they're not 8, they don't think I'm amazing just because I'm breathing anymore. No, those are parents. Your children are your first disciples. It is not even, Hugo, it's not even your job to do all the Jesus teaching. You should be echoing, supporting, scaffolding, upholding, equipping the parents. But our first disciples are the people that God put in our lives. Like, my parents' first disciples were me and my 2 brothers.
I think there's an element of, as you said, there's some assumptions that we have, whether they come from culture or movies we've watched or whatever, about our relationship with our kids.
Right.
That, as you said it, I kept thinking, we kind of begin to distance ourselves because we assume they need or want more independence. And I think when we're talking about this approach of being intentional, being aware enough of what's going on in their lives, that maybe we start thinking about this negative connotation of the helicopter parent.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, I don't want to be the helicopter parent, so I'm just going to give them the space. So I'm just going to let them go out with their friends. I'm just going to let them have their social media, and I'm not going to keep up. I'm not going to track it. Like, I'll follow them or I'll friend them, but it'll be their own thing, and I'm just going to trust them.
Yeah.
Where is, I don't know if we can call it the balance, but what's the best approach from your perspective and what you've seen? Now, we understand each parent has their own relationship with their kids, and you parent the way that you feel God is leading you to. But at the same time, we are going to say, as parents, there's an expectation and a responsibility as stewards of our children that we will do what we can. to keep them safe, to protect them from the very much real darkness that is in the world.
Yeah.
So how do we keep them from just like hiding them in our house and actually like allowing them to experience like
Yeah.
why don't you talk into that if you can?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the first one to admit I'm not even a parent, so everything I share is from experience that I've learned and seen and observed in my 6 years in this field, and as a teacher and as someone who is blessed with a role of support to 6 nieces and nephews in my own family. But I think that the thing to think about is the difference between sheltering versus shepherding, right? Like Jesus didn't just die and raised from the dead and then, immediately take all his followers home. He left them here. He equipped them. I put this guy. I love these words because what you're hoping is parents are going to find out about human trafficking. It's a thing. We should pay attention. Okay, now what do? We equip ourselves and our youth with books and videos and conversation starters and apps that'll help monitor what's going on the phone and accountability software on computers, and even the idea of modeling what we hope our teenagers do, like not looking at our phone in private or using a screen that anyone can see and having an open, like, yeah, that's what I was doing, there's nothing to hide here, and then sending them into the world on a gradual release type idea, because the shepherd went everywhere the sheep went, and the shepherd does shield and seclude the sheep during a storm or at night, and takes on the big predators that are coming at them. But they don't just carry the sheep and not let them learn and grow and develop. So there's a gradual release. There's a responsibility to inform them and be there for them when they mess up. And, one of the best things that anyone's ever done for me is share with me, not just glorifying, maybe the tragedy that was our life before the Savior got us, and then being like, yeah, just raise Cain and it'll be fine. But sharing some truth about, yeah, I didn't get it right the first time, but let you learn from my mistakes so that you don't have to experience that. Sometimes I think people are so afraid of being thought of as a bad parent that they won't even seek help for fear of judgment. And I don't believe that would exist here, and certainly not for anyone that would reach out to Lighthouse for Life. We hear from parents all the time. I would drive parents to our resource tab, watch the videos, read the books, equip yourself, because your children know about the things that we're talking about. Whether you have been the one to tell them or not is your opportunity. But I say be the one to drive that narrative.
And these conversations are hard conversations to have, and we acknowledge and understand that. But at the same time, we believe that they are worth having. Earlier we were talking about how it might create an awkward moment.
Yeah.
These conversations, again, might create an awkward moment. But the outcome, the benefit of what can come out of a conversation that's upfront, that's honest, that's transparent, that's loving, can definitely be worth.
Totally.
These are your own babies. These are your kids. And we've got to be fighting for them. And we've got to be willing to say, I need to sit you down and we need to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And hopefully the best outcome is that it's not something they're struggling with, but now they know you're a safe place to have this conversation. And now they know they can come to you about these things. We want to build that.
Yes.
We want to build that into our relationships with our kids, right?
That's the key, is relationship. This isn't even a one and done. Like, I told you about the birds and the bees. See you later. It's much more so that relationship, that open door, that opportunity that you're on their side. You would much rather have your daughter or your son come to you and tell you, hey, I sent a picture of myself that I wish I hadn't sent. And now somebody's telling me if I don't do what they want, they're going to share it. Wouldn't you rather your child come to you and take the risk of telling you that than being so scared of what you're going to say that they don't tell you and they try to handle it on their own, and then it just turns into a tragedy?
Yeah.
What does it take to create that kind of environment? Not a one and done.
Yeah. It's an ongoing.
Yeah.
Right? And again, it all points back to the way that we have our relationship with God the Father, right? God He didn't give us Jesus one moment and then say, okay, I hope this works out for you and I'll see you on the other side. It's like the Holy Spirit dwells in us, and we have constant moments of growing and God sharpening and rebuking and disciplining us so that we grow into better images of who He is and what He wants for us. And we have the same relationship with our kids. Mine are still really young. My oldest is now going to be 8. But even if your kid is in their 30s now, you're always mom. You're always dad. Your responsibility is always to shepherd those little guys, no matter how big they are now. And I think that this is an issue that we have to be incredibly intentional about. So what I'd like to discuss real quick is what are some potential pitfalls that a teenager might fall into and not recognize they're being led into a trafficking type situation.
So a lot of the signs that we see, and we've had this conversation, like you said, prior to this video, but strangers are not your primary source of fear, parents. I would encourage you to pay attention to who is getting a lot of the screen time of your students. Like, who are they texting? Who are they on these apps with? Who are they FaceTiming? What are they spending their time doing? Because the people that want to take advantage of them are not going to come in and say, hey, I'm here for your exploitation. Now, they're going to come in and they're going to groom them, and they're going to build trust, and they're going to be a listener, and they're going to be a safe place, and maybe they're going to offer things that seem too good to be true. And so I would suggest paying attention to who your students are in relationships with, where are they spending their time, who's texting them, how is there privacy versus secrecy, and what's the healthy difference between that, and secrets versus private. Those are two different things. Boundaries. Do your children have healthy boundaries, and do they have the self-worth and the identity to express those boundaries? Don't force them to hug somebody at the family reunion that you see twice every 6 months. Let them say no, and teach them how to say no and yes, and allow for a line between polite versus safety. We're in a Southern culture where it's like, if somebody pulls up and asks for directions, you don't just go to the window. But at the same time, I'm telling you now, pay attention to, are they referring to people that they're in an older relationship with? Are they referring to people that are kind of pushing their boundaries? If they're starting to run away, we beg parents to not even use the term runaway, but missing from care, because a lot of times runaway implies my child's raising hell and they don't want to be here and it's on them. But they're missing from care. They're a child. Their brain isn't fully ready to understand the difference between saying yes today has a much longer consequence than just today.
Absolutely. So another thing that we talked about a little bit earlier, and we're just kind of jumping around to try to get as much in as we can. But what we're going to do as we post this video, we'll also make sure that you have all the available information and resources that Lighthouse for Life is presenting and that they have on their website. And we'll make sure you have appropriate numbers and that you have our information here as a church so you can contact us as well. But more than anything, I just want to make sure that we're grasping the severity of the issue, because this is very real.
It is.
It is happening. The reality that no one is outside the reach of this issue.
That's right.
That it can come and it can address any kid.
Yes.
Even some of what we would consider our best children, which they're all amazing. All right. But even, in the perfect situation, American Dream style, like the original story that created the need for this ministry, like all children can be touched by it.
They can.
Every family is vulnerable to it. Unless we need to just take the steps. And so one of the things that you mentioned earlier as we were having conversations prior to this is this concept of the dating, which for me kind of really stood out. If there's a 1 at the beginning of your age and how that relates. I think it's worth drawing a little bit of attention to.
Yeah, well, 19 and 21 would be different than 13 and 24 or 15 and 22. Like, I would say the significant age difference in the relationships that your child has is something to pay a ton of attention to. No 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old needs to be dating somebody in their 20s. How healthy is the person in their 20s if who they're going for isn't old enough to be able to sniff out what's going on? And a message I'd love to give your parents is if you sense something in your knower, your spidey senses are going off, and you're like, something just isn't adding up. Like, this guy is 25 and he carries around a lot of cash, and he is wanting to take my daughter out on all these adventures and buy her things that we don't even buy her, but he never goes to work, and he is, he's studying to be a pastor at a local seminary. Who cares? None of that matters as much as you following your intuition, your God-given ability to say that something's not right. And like we said, it's much better to speak up. And your child is your business. So the idea that what's on their phone is not your business is a lie. You pay the bill. If they took a picture of themselves and sent it to someone and it was an inappropriate picture, you're held liable for the creation and distribution of child pornography. So it is not small to understand that you're their parent first, their friend later, and that the awkward conversation is worth it. Do you care more about if they think you're cool or if they're still around next month? I could just
Yeah.
keep on
No, I
rambling,
love
but
this. I love this
trust your
because
instincts.
I think that's huge. Trust yourself. But
Yes.
then can we talk about the fact that we need to trust our kids?
Yes, you do need to trust your kids, but you don't need to trust your kids to their own detriment, because what you're not trusting are the people that are outside that cell phone. So if you think that you've done your job because your kid is home and safe and in the bed and well fed and insured and the whole nine, and it's 10 p.m. and your daughter has her phone in her room, you are failing her, in my personal opinion, because everyone who's on that phone or has access to her on that phone is in her bedroom with her. And so just some healthy boundaries. I'm not here to condemn. I'm not casting stones. I'm not saying it's over, it's too late. I'm saying let's just pause and think. If you are in public, there's some social norms that don't allow a ton of strangers to just line up and ask your kid all about themselves. But on that device, those boundaries are gone, and it seems to be an open forum.
So parenting is an incredibly challenging thing to talk about.
Yes,
because,
I don't
again,
envy.
we're not trying to tell people how to parent, but we're trying to say, draw attention to the fact that we need to be intentional parents.
Yes.
And that it is worth the awkward conversation, the confrontational conversation, and it's almost worth your kid being mad at you for a little bit. Like that's okay. Your responsibility right now is to make sure they are taken care of in every facet, spiritually, emotionally, healthy, physically. And this is an element of that. But one thing that I want to draw a little bit of attention to is trusting our students when they speak up against something else. When they say, hey, this person might have done this, or they made me uncomfortable. Trusting their word until we can investigate almost.
Innocent until proven guilty is for the court.
Okay.
If it's my child, I'm going with guilty until proven innocent, because that's my child. And yes, are false accusations made at times? Yes, but sometimes people will accuse somebody that they trust of something that somebody else did just to see what's going to happen. And sometimes a trafficker can actually come in and take a child out of an abusive situation that's being neglected, because they posture as the hero and they listened. And at least they're being listened to. And so trust yourself, and yes, follow up every lead and let it be found to be false versus not following it and then later, being like, man, I wish I'd have went after that. I definitely hope you don't hear condemnation, parents. We are on your side. We are championing you and wanting you to trust yourself, and that God picked you out of all the people he could have picked to be with those, even as the position of a step parent or a foster parent, guardian in general. He picked you. What an honor. We're here. We're on your side.
Absolutely. And again, this conversation is broad strokes. And hopefully, again, we'll have more specific to deal with issues and awareness and citing and coming in and helping. But real quick, as we're trying to wrap this up and kind of come to a place of, okay, what now? How would you encourage a parent? We've said, hey, don't be afraid of these hard conversations. But how would you encourage a parent who says, I just don't know, where to start?
It may seem like a really fluffy rainbow and unicorn kind of answer, but I literally mean it when I say just love well and live well in the day-to-day. Quit watching your show in one room and their show in another room and be in the same room playing a game. Just spend time with them, pursue them. Your sphere of influence is so critical, that you bloom where you're planted, that you love who is right here instead of leaping over to love so well out there. Love in your sphere of influence, because it was divinely appointed. And if we each just start, even with yourself, what if you are a wounded parent who says, I have no right to speak into it because I know about me? Start by being accepted and loved by the Father, and then live out of that.
You've got to talk to your kids about having them understand their value in God's eyes. It's something that we focused on as we were recording this for your students, as they get to watch it. They need to know that they are well loved for who they are, as they are by God. And that while God does want us to grow and mature into the people he's created us to be, he doesn't look down on us and say, I can't believe you did that. God says instead, hey, would you come here and I will walk with you. And so you've got to help your children understand that they are beautiful and loved by you as parents, and then by God as well. And that connection, that has to be there. That has to be there. So if you're like, I don't know where to start, make that happen. Make those conversations happen. Say, hey, how do you feel like God feels about you? Start there. And then be intentional about your time with them. And look for the opportunities to have conversations about their sexuality, what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what they're exposed to, what their friends are talking about, what they're seeing on social media. Again, hard conversations, but worth it every time.
Yes, you know, one thing, parents have come and given me some feedback after these kind of events. And one parent went home and just said, "What do you think it would take for me and Dad to not love you anymore?" And the daughter actually had an answer. And it broke the mom's heart. So what they did for the next half hour was the daughter thought of the worst thing she could think of. What if this, Mom? And Mom was able to sit and physically, verbally affirm, nope, still my daughter. And so even if you have the what if kind of questions, or I ask my nephews, how do you know that I love you? And the answers they give me are examples of ways I can show them I love them in the future. Because one of them said, you tell me. And the other one said, you take me out. So now I know that one really wants words, and that one really wants to go do things.
Yeah. Each kid is going to have to be approached uniquely. And I get it. I have 3 kids myself, and there's a moment at the end of the day where I'm like, it's bedtime. Like, I need you to go. Yeah, please, it's time. Daddy needs to unwind. I get those moments are very real, parents. But when they are around us, we need to be all over them. We need to be loving them with kindness and all these elements so that we're creating. Look, church should be a safe place, but if we're honest, it's not always. And that's very sad, heartbreaking truth and reality of the world that we live in. I'm here for your students, but you should be the primary person they're ready to talk to. You should be the one that they say, this isn't okay. Mom, can we talk? Or Dad, I need a moment. We're doing the best we can to be here for them, but we want you to know that we want to equip you so you can be that person. We want them coming to you because when they graduate high school, we have very limited contact, if any, with students, but you will see them for the rest of their lives or your life, and you have that continued influence. So parents, please, if anything, if you get anything from today, is understand that this is real, and you're the first line of defense.
But you're not alone.
And you're not alone. Yes. So, Jen, thank you for taking the time. Again, we're going to hang out more, and we're going to put more of these out there for you guys as parents as time allows. Maybe we'll even bring Emily Wheaton into this and just make it all a big fun thing. But thank you again for taking the time, and we are praying for you and your children. And don't hesitate to reach out and ask for anything you might need. Thank you.